Today, I really want to do a deep dive into the truth about GLP-1s, your cortisol, your hunger hormones, and really how to fully reset your metabolism. So, before I get started, I really want you to think about something that I've known for a really long time. Every patient that comes into my clinic, a leader, a high performer, an executive, they almost all come to me saying this sort of messaging. I don't recognize myself anymore, Dr. Donahue. And the doctors keep telling me everything is fine. My lab results come back as normal and I just don't feel like myself. Drop self in the chat if that's you. Like you just aren't feeling like yourself, but everything that you've had done and all these lab values are normal. And I'll share with you as you think about that for a moment. I just started working with a breast cancer survivor. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jennifer. And um, all of her labs except one cancer marker came back fairly normal, except for high cholesterol. And so she is really, yeah, self forever. She's really struggling. And you know what? She's a nurse. So does that share something with you? Like we know these things, but I say to so many patients, they're like, well, Dr. Donahue, you understand you have the knowledge. Just because I have the knowledge, I don't see the blind spot myself for me. That's why I was going to acupuncture my naturopath this afternoon, but unfortunately an emergency happened, and I get it. Just like something happened with the email today, right? So we get to pivot and move. So when you don't recognize yourself, you have to stay with that intuition, right? And you have to keep searching and you get to keep searching. And I remember that was my story. Those of you that know my story, back when I was 18 years old and I had horrible depression and horrible menstrual cramps, and I used all my energy that I could to get through the week, and I would crash on the weekends. And I had my dad sit on the side of the bed and said, I never thought I'd have a daughter who would give up. It had nothing to do with giving up. I just was not living in my true potential, but what God put me on this earth for. So I just want you to keep that in your mind that you get to keep finding answers, and that's why you're here. And I'm so proud of you, which some of you are on GLP-1s, some of you want to come off of them because either they've done their job or they're not affordable. Some of you are terrified what happens next. Some are scared to even take up that, not understanding the medication. And this is why I'm here to support you because you're like, should I take them? Should I not? I've had many phone calls with some of you who are just petrified either to come off of them or to start them. So if you're really feeling tired or confused or unsure, you're really in the right room. And if you're here today, it really tells me something important because you want your energy back, because that's what we're talking about today. You want your mood back, plus your emotions stabilized, because when we don't feel good and our emotions are off and we're having all these cravings, then we can have the anger, the anxiety, the instability that happens. So we want your metabolism working for you, not against you. And what you put in your body, in your microbiome, do you know your microbiome really tells you your health? We're learning this more and more, and it's probably over the last 20 years. I was even doing some, research on this weekend, right? So GLP-1s are a supportive bridge, and that's the Wegovy, Mangiano, and I know that there's a mixture with a trizepatide. I'm just using GLP-1 to make it easy because I'd have to list out every drug and every agonist and all of those pieces. So we're just using it, so just bear with me here. So this these medications were never meant to be the destination for you. And remember, nothing that I'm talking about, I say it right from my heart with love. Nothing is about blame. I'm here to support you so that you can understand how your body functions because I tell patients this at the clinic. If you understand why I'm asking you to do what you do, then you're more likely going to do it. And when you understand your body, you're going to stop having that push and pull or that fighting or that sort of chaos because you can't get the results you want. So today I'm going to show you exactly exactly why fatigue, your low hunger cues, and stalled energy happens. And then more importantly, 100% reset so that you can thrive long term. So before I do a deep dive and really get into quote unquote the meat, the protein, like the points that I want to make today, I want you to rate your energy and drop it in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, you had a really hard time getting out of bed, and 10, you bounced up and you're ready to go. So before you drop it in the chat, I want you to shut your eyes if you can. I know some of you are driving, but if you can't shut your eyes, just really think from your heart right now and really drop into your body and truly hear what is your energy. What is your energy today? Jennifer's an 8, 4. And listen to your intuition, you guys, right? Because 9, great, Debbie. 6. Yeah, because we don't want to make up these numbers. We really want to be real with what is, really happening inside of us. Because most people tell me the same thing in the beginning when they're having energy drops, right? And they'll say, for the first time, my brain really felt quiet when they're taking GLP-1s, right? The food noise has stopped. And then this feeling of control that you're not eating out of control. So, why does this happen? So, what these medications do, and you're going to hear me repeat this because this is just the general knowledge of what the medications do, is they slow your gastric emptying, right? They slow the stomach from emptying, so they slow it down. And then they signal to your brain to reduce appetite, right? So if you're feeling fuller, you're not going to eat as much. Does that make sense? And then what also happens, which is really good because high sugar shows inflammation, cancer loves sugar. I believe sugar and inflammation are the basis of all diseases, right? So these stabilize sugar and they also reduce your dopamine driven cravings. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So this calm is really feeling well, right? But I want you to hear this. It's coming from suppressing these because the medication is doing its job through the testing when they created the actual drug. It's not a bad thing, but it's not really restoring your metabolism. And the missing conversation that I want to teach and support you with here is if you have appetite suppression and you're not eating, you're not going to have nourishment. You're not going to have what the body actually needs to function. Does that make sense? Like you are going to live in a state of being undernourished. When you're losing weight, you're not necessarily, at some level you are, deeper in metabolic healing. And then what begins to happen, and this is when the metabolism gets broken, is your body begins to adapt quickly to restriction, right? And so the body's like, oh, so if you restrict me, I lose weight. But then it's almost like the domino effect, right? It's everything falls down. I don't know if that was the right sort of analogy, but the body's going to adapt to this restrictive responses. So I worked with a woman, I think she was in her late 40s. She was disciplined, she was organized, she felt successful in every area of her life. Again, I don't judge that, I just hear what people are saying to me. And she said to me, for the first time in her life, after being on a GLP-1, her brain felt quiet and she wasn't thinking about food all day. And you know what that created for her? Freedom. And I remember thinking to myself, of course you did. because her nervous system wasn't thinking about food and what she was going to eat. It actually got relief so that she could focus on what she was doing through the day. Does that make sense? Yeah. About 5 months later, she came back and sat down quietly and she said to me, I don't feel like myself anymore. I'm losing the weight. I'm tired all the time. I don't have this joy and laughter inside of me. And you guys, nothing had gone wrong. Her body was simply adapting, and it was asking for more support than suppression. So remember that your body and your metabolism is adaptive. It's meant to keep you alive, not to keep you lean, not to keep you thin, not to keep you like that image that we're all, or some may be going for. And then many of you are going for health because I've spoken to several of you, right? So if you're taking like a weight loss medication, who has felt amazing the first few weeks or months and now really feels depleted? Drop tired in the chat. I just want to see where you guys are at. Is that you? Are you feeling tired? Because this is like the place where people start to think like this medication is right, when their body's really asking, sorry, this medication is not right, something's wrong, when really their body's just wanting support. Okay, so nobody has noticed fatigue after being on the medication. Okay. All right. So cortisol is really the hormone that drives our entire story. And that's really what dysregulates our nervous system. So if you understand cortisol, everything else will start to make sense. What does cortisol actually do? Right? It's that stress response. It can be an anti-inflammatory, you guys, and that's really what it's meant to do. But many of us run on this cortisol 24/7, like when we're under stress. So it rises when you're under stress. It also rises when you don't feed your body what your body really needs to eat. If your blood sugar is all over the place, it's like that instability of sugar, up, down, up, down. If you exercise excessively and don't have the right amount of nourishment inside of you, and then also emotional pressure. So what does a GLP-1 do? It's GLP-1s plus restriction plus your stress equals a body that begins to feel unsafe, right? And cortisol has a direct impact on our hunger hormones like leptin, ghrelin, and CCK. So leptin tells us that we're full. We talked about this last Friday for those that you were on. And then it gives us this long-term energy availability. Cortisol actually blocks that signaling. Okay. And then CCK is another hormone, cholecystine kinase, and that signals that we're satisfied from the food that we're eating. And guess what? Cortisol suppresses that as well. So this is why when people say to me, I'm not hungry, but I'm exhausted, that's not willpower. That is hormone disruption. So think about it right now. When do you feel you're most depleted if you are feeling depleted and drained? Is it in the AM or the evening? So morning or evening. So drop AM or PM in the chat. Are you more tired? Okay, so if you're more tired in the PM, is it like 2 to 4 p.m. or is it evening? Nikki's the AM. Evening. Okay. Okay, so those of you from 2 to 4 could be, right? I'm not diagnosing or treating here, could be that your adrenals need some support and you're pushing. The other piece that could be happening as well is if you're not eating your protein in the morning, Right, for breakfast, it may not satiate you, and then you're eating protein for lunch, protein and vegetables like we talked about on the metabolism challenge. And then you may want to make sure that you're eating the protein for lunch. And then you also remember what we do today sets us up for tomorrow, right? So you may also want to think about getting a snack in there. And you could be pushing your body quite hard. Those are my 2 to 4 p.m. people. If you're most tired at 6 o'clock, look at what you're eating at lunchtime. Are you eating enough? Right? It's actually, I mean, I'm saying lunchtime or morning, but it's actually if we're not eating those consistent meals, remember we want to sit down and we want to say, what's our protein? What's our starch? And what's our healthy fat and vegetables? So our vegetables are our starch, right? Okay, so you're a morning person. Okay, great. That really helps me so that I can see where people are at, right? So if cortisol is staying elevated, I'm summing this up. If your cortisol is staying elevated, then your body cannot hear hunger or fullness signals, even if your scale is dropping up or down, right? If it's going down or going up. So I will tell you what I started with before we actually started recording today is it's like you really want to get your nervous system dysregulated. Sometimes, like, the patient that I just shared with you going through the breast cancer journey right now, like, I can see right away that her system is on overload. It's super her nervous system. So what am I doing with her? Prayer, meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, grounding, right? I'm getting her in her body, you guys. So the patients that don't move ahead, right? I have to look at their nervous system, which leads me into if our nervous system is in overdrive, we can't digest well. So if we're going, then we're taking a GLP-1 and we're slowing our digestion, we're lowering our absorption, causing fatigue, right? And then we're not eating enough. Can you see that how the nervous system can now get set off based on what I said that cortisol actually regulates? So GLP-1s are slowing your digestion on purpose. They're doing what they're meant to do. But here's what I want you to hear. What you're choosing to eat when you're on these medications is so important, right? I know many of you had protein aha moments. You weren't eating enough protein, which is going to be our class on Friday. So your digestion is where your nourishment begins. So if you're not digesting well, then you're going to have lower stomach acid. Your pancreatic enzymes, which are there to digest, which is like digestion of starches, amylase, proteases, which is enzymes to digest protein, lipases, which are enzymes to digest fat, they're not being released. Then you're not breaking down protein well, and then you have slower micronutrient absorption. And the key nutrients that get affected here is B vitamins, energy and brain, right? And you need B12 to digest. Many end up with iron deficiency so that they don't get the great oxygen delivery that they need. Their magnesium can get affected. I can tell you almost everybody that comes into my clinic, unless they're taking magnesium, is magnesium deficient. You need magnesium for the nervous system and for so many different cofactors for your biology to function. And then the amino acids are getting affected because you're not eating the protein that you need. And protein is the amino acids, and that builds your muscle and your metabolism. So I have a 38-year-old female patient that said something to me that I hear all the time, just recently. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. I'm not hungry, but I'm exhausted. She was a high achiever. She was exercising. She ate clean. She was proud of her discipline. She was on point. But when we slowed down and looked at her physiology, her cortisol was constantly elevated when I took a saliva cortisol test. Her body wasn't calm, it was just surviving, but she didn't know that, right? So once I was able to support that cortisol, get her nervous system regulated, and her body feeling safe, something incredible happened. She was actually hungry again and she felt satisfied when she was eating. That wasn't failure, you guys. That was really her metabolism was waking back up. Because you can eat clean, you can eat enough, and you can still be deeply undernourished. I want you to hear that, right? So many people are saying, I just don't understand, Dr. Donahue. I'm eating less, I'm eating cleaner than ever, organic foods. Why do I feel worse? Well, lots of times on these medications, they may not be absorbing the proteins that they actually need, not breaking down food properly because what we just talked about, and the labs are looking normal, but your body's depleted, which is what we started with, right? So once you support digestion and absorption, your energy is going to change, not overnight, but steadily. Remember what my personal trainer said, you're still showing up and doing your exercises steadily. It might not be at the level that you used to do them right now because of the grief that you're going through your dad, but you're still showing up, right? So when I see patients like this and I turn them around, they finally feel like food is giving them the energy and the fuel they need, right? It's not that your body needs stricter rules, you guys. It really needs support. So drop in the chat who feels like you're doing all the right things, but you still feel tired. Drop me in the chat. Or you still, maybe not tired, you're not getting the results that you want to get. And this is why I'm supporting you because quick fixes don't work. And quick fixes don't support your metabolism like you need to. Okay, that hits nobody. Okay, great. So I don't have anybody that's tired. I don't have anybody feeling like they're doing all the right things and they're not getting the results. That's great because you're 1%, 1 to 2% of the population. Mineral depletion is real too, and this is I call this the silent energy drain. And not many practitioners ever talk about this, right? So if you're doing filtered water or like reverse osmosis, which I tell my patients to do this, but then we replace it with the foods and the minerals from the vegetables that we're eating, or we take it in and we test it and we watch it, your sodium, potassium, magnesium can be reduced. And if you're having reduced food intake, especially if you're grabbing, they could be quality starches or sugars instead of protein and vegetables, and you have reduced food intake, you're going to have fewer minerals from your food. Many people don't look at mineral depletion. Mineral depletion can be fatigue, it can be anxiety, it could be dizziness, it could be heart palpitations, muscle weakness, cramping in your muscles at night, or poor sleep, right? So if you're feeling worse when you drink more water, it's not because your hydration is off, it's because your minerals are missing. So you want to really make sure that you're getting the minerals in the food that you actually need. That is 100% the body needs to function on those minerals. It was very interesting this year when I always look back and see like, I do a reflection on like what I saw for patients this year. I build out my year calendar for next year for Simple Health, which is pretty much all built out. I'll hand it off to my team this week, but it was fascinating. I saw so many people with heart conditions, cardiovascular conditions, but potassium imbalances and magnesium. I was just like, wow, like a slew of patients had them, which isn't always typical, right? So, And I'm thinking about one of my patients as I'm talking right now. She came in, and hopefully these patient cases supporting you as I talk? Drop yes in the chat because I want to know I share them with you because that story you can sometimes connect with, and that tells you kind of what I treat. Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know that. So this patient that I'm thinking about was dizzy and anxious, and she had like heart racing and heart palpitations. And of course, when you feel that way, especially dizziness and heart racing, she didn't realize the anxiety was tied to it. She felt like something was seriously wrong. When I really dug deep during our intake, and that's why it's important to stay connected and getting in the rooms like you're doing right now, she's drinking tons of filtered water. She wasn't eating much, and she was pushing herself to stay on the plan that I gave her, right? But when I actually looked and dug what was really happening even deeper, we were able to restore her sodium, magnesium, and potassium, like I was just talking about. And now her response literally, I believe it was something like, Dr. Donahue, I feel like I have come back into my body. I didn't change anything dramatically, but it was just really what her body needed, right? So this is one of the areas where simple education and weekly reminders make a massive difference for you to think about like, oh, if I'm drinking the water, am I absorbing it? Or am I drinking water, enough water, right? Am I, there's all sorts of research is coffee good for you? Is it bad for you? Is it healthy for you? Is it not healthy for you? Like, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we don't find an issue with 1 cup of coffee, right? For dehydration. We really start to see it if you're doing 2, 3, 4 cups a day, right? So that's really when we're starting to see it. But if you're just enjoying 1 cup of coffee, as long as you're not doing it to wake yourself up every morning and to get yourself going, if you are, you want to think about your adrenals. But so getting the water in, like when you're thirsty, the theory is if you're truly thirsty, your body's probably dehydrated. Does that make sense? But if you're just kind of sipping and drinking, and then what happens, I don't know if you know this, to go off on a tangent, but your thirst and your hunger mechanism are so close. So that's why a lot of weight loss programs, which this is not that, is going to say to you, drink water before you actually eat. Because are you hungry or are you thirsty? Right? So hopefully that's making sense. You want to check in and make sure that you're actually getting the minerals that you actually need. And that's why, a lot of people, on another note, a lot of people on the flip side, when I'm saying seeing potassium, magnesium, I've seen them elevated as well because people are drinking these hydration packs like anyway, I don't want to label them because I don't, but there's so many out there. They're drinking too many for themselves and they just don't need that much, and they're almost getting this kind of high off of them, but it's not actually a supplement. It's more like that anxiety is kicking in because their minerals are too high. So next I want to step into um, your sleep and blood sugar and why you're tired pattern. You guys, you're going to always hear me talk about sleep because it's not just for rest, it is metabolic repair. I talked about this deep last time as well. Because remember, what's happening at night is cortisol. If you're sound asleep and you have a cortisol spike, it's because you could have low blood sugar. You didn't eat enough throughout the day. Remember, I'm going to say this again. Whatever you eat today sets you up for your sleep tonight and sets you up for what happens tomorrow. If you undereat, your cortisol is going to raise. And if you're under chronic stress, your cortisol is going to raise, right? So as your blood sugar drops, your cortisol is going to spike. And often the time is variable, but I often see patients say they wake up between 2 to 4 a.m., right? And so this is why when I asked you in the very beginning if you were tired or not, if you're sleeping 7 to 8 hours and you're still waking up exhausted, that could be why, right? Because you're not feeding the body what it needs, even being on these medications. You still need to feed the body what you need. And I noticed a couple different people said they're microdosing. That's great. That's what I love. And it's not that I don't dislike the other ones. It's just that it's kind of like that knock on the door that you need, right? Um, and it also brings down the inflammation, which is great. And it helps with autoimmunity and it helps with heart. Like it helps so many. It's not bad. I just want to make sure that you're doing it naturally. And this is why I'm in your corner. Because sleep is not just rest, it's really metabolic repair, right? So if I have patients say to me, like, I fall asleep fine, but I wake up like wired at 3 a.m., I know right away what's happening. Their cortisol is rising in response to low blood sugar, under eating, chronic stress, right? And it's so important for them to understand that. And so, what I will often do, which is a little bit of a trick, we figure out, do you need protein before you go to bed? So maybe I'll have them eat some protein. They'll have a hard-boiled egg, or maybe they'll have a handful of almonds because that's proteins and a little bit of fat. And believe it or not, sometimes you need a little bit of a carb because you haven't given yourself carbs. So maybe they'll have like, I don't know, a sweet potato, or they'll like, I don't mean a whole sweet potato, just like a couple tablespoons, or um, they'll take like rice crackers or rice cakes, like half of them, and put like an almond butter, some sort of nut butter on them, right? So that helps keep them satiated throughout the night. So it's like you don't need another sleep supplement, which is what most patients come in and they're like, I need another I've tried all the medications and, it's like you really need metabolic healing and safety. I hope like you guys are getting that because this is how we actually reset our metabolism so it works for us. Remember, your metabolism wants you to heal. It's not broken. That's the truth. It's responding exactly to how it's designed, but we have to give the body what it needs for it to do what it needs to do. We have to create it so it's a fat burner, not a sugar burner. We have to make sure it has the right amount of food and the nutrition and the right amount of emotions and the right amount of stress. Stress is not bad. It's that constant punch of stress that's too much, right? So, your protein. So let's look at this high level as we start to kind of wind down a bit. Your protein timing for your body will signal safety. I suggest protein at every single meal. Adequate nourishment that you're feeding your body with your healthy fats, your vegetables, and your protein. That's what your body wants for the metabolism to function, not restriction. No more dieting. Let's get rid of that diet mentality that we've all grown up with. Let's figure out what works for us. That's why I'm here. And then moving your body to rebuild trust with your body and be connected to your body. Like, if, like, I had a patient who's like, I'm afraid I'm going to have, because she has high, anyway, it's a little scary, like when I treat patients like this, but she's on 5 different hypertensive medications and her blood pressure is still high. So she said, Dr. Donahue, I'm afraid to move or work out because I just don't want to have a massive heart attack. So I had to go through the labs with her and show her like her plaquing is okay and her stress test was okay and she just has to move her body and get her stress down, right? The stress test was what they do at the hospital for those of you that are familiar with cardiovascular stress tests. And I said, I just want you to walk. I want you to do yoga. Like, I want you to do something where you stay connected to your body so your body now begins to trust itself. So I have to walk with her slowly because she could have a cardiovascular event with the blood pressure that high, right? You also always want sunlight for circadian rhythm. As cold as it was this morning, well, the sun didn't come out here until 6 a.m. because we're getting into darker days, right? Where I was just saying to my family this weekend, like, I'm going to be so glad when December 21st is here because then the days, minute by minute, start to get longer, right? So even though I went outside at 4:35 to take the dog out, I really didn't go outside again until 6 when the sunlight started to come out. Why am I saying that? Because you need to see sunlight for circadian rhythm. Take your sunglasses out and just stand and look at the sun for 5 or 10 minutes, right? We didn't really have sun the other day, but still I got outside. It was cold on Friday or Saturday, but I still walked. It was still natural light. It just wasn't sunlight. You always want to keep your blood sugar stable. That blood sugar all over the place spikes cortisol up and down, like we talked about. It also causes inflammation. If you're pre-diabetic or diabetic and you're saying it's okay, probably that's why you're on like Mounjaro, Wegovy, or Ozempic, right? You want to keep it stable. And we keep it stable by the amount of sleep, by what we eat, how we move our bodies, and our emotions. And this last one, you guys, is the most important one. And this one, patients, and I said this 3 times today, I'm going to say it again. If patients are stuck and I can't get them to move, I go back to not only homeopathy, but I go back to their brain and their nervous system. And I really get them to be real with me about how their nervous system is imbalanced, and I want to regulate that. I do craniosacral at the clinic with patients, and I've done it more and more over the last 5 years than I've ever done it. We are very much in a dysregulated state. If you are in that stress state all the time, you're shutting all the hormones off that we just talked about today because your body thinks it's in a stress state and it wants to keep you safe. I'm hoping that makes sense. None of these are hacks. These are skills that you get to implement, right? The first executive that I talked about in the very beginning, the one who felt flat, she didn't stay stuck. All I did with her is rebuild her nourishment, regulated her cortisol and her circadian rhythm, restored her minerals, and remember what she said, like, I feel safe in my body again. I'm not afraid of food. I'm not afraid to gain weight. She felt strong and she felt like she had really good energy. We didn't need to push her metabolism anymore. We needed to pull it back. It needed consistency. So I want you to think about everything that we just talked about and drop in the chat which of these feels the hardest for you right now. Like, is it why healing doesn't happen in isolation? Is it that you don't feel like you have the knowledge? Is it you don't feel you have the accountability? What is it that is stopping you from becoming the best version of yourself right now? Yeah, craniosacral is great, Ashley. Sufficient protein. So as you're dropping these in the chat, think about what can you do today to change that? So there's two in there that says protein. What's your lunch going to be today? That's right. So start thinking and even write it down because when we journal, I didn't tell you to pull out a journal today because I think like they're probably going to be tired. Like pull your journal out, pull your journal out. You want to add protein, a protein shake. Okay, make sure it's clean, Ashley. And I love that you said accountability to yourself because that is important. We have to figure out a system. Great. We have to figure out a system that works for us. If I didn't hit that home enough, it's for you. It's not what works for me isn't going to work for you. Great. Egg, cheese, or salmon, and maybe all of them, however you're thinking to putting it together. Like this is what helps support you guys get going. Because again, your metabolism isn't broken. It's actually responding to exactly how it's designed. And I watch this over and over, even in myself. If I get off track and I feel bloated or I feel tired or I don't feel well, I get to go back to what did I do yesterday or what am I doing right now that's taking me out of my game, that's taking me off my wealth, my wellness. Because when you guys, when we rebuild nourishment, We regulate our cortisol and we restore minerals. Our body feels safe. Remember that patient I talked about? Her hunger returned, her energy came back, and she wasn't afraid of food, right? So these foundations are simple. Again, it's protein timing so that your body signals safety. It's adequate nourishment, not restriction. It is movement. It is sunlight. It is blood sugar stability, and it is nervous system regulation. I've said those twice on purpose so that you hear it, right? I want to talk to you about something gently but honestly. I had a patient say to me, this was probably just 2 months ago, and I always try to create like stories that will fit what we're talking about so that you guys can relate to it. She said, how did she say it? I realized I was spending more energy worrying about my health than living my life, right? She was more worried what was going to happen to her than she could live her life and enjoy it. And the real cost looked like this: the mental energy that you're spent guessing on, how do I do this? What does it look like? The anxiety around the food. I'm afraid to eat this. I'm afraid to eat that. I don't know what to eat. And so you just don't eat or you're unsure what to eat or you have a fear of weight gain. And that constant second guessing takes a lot of energy. And so I said to her, I'm so glad you're here because doing this alone has been expensive for you. This is a cost versus a price. It's been emotionally, mentally, and physically draining. I always want you to remember that your health is not an expense, it's your greatest asset, right? Every day somebody's passing. We have a short time on this earth, right? Support doesn't make you dependent. It gives you freedom to live your life, just like this patient I'm referring to. It gave her the freedom to live her life with peace, knowing that she was healing and making changes to the plan that we created. So I want you to ask yourself, and if you feel safe and vulnerable, like what is it costing you to stay confused and not having a plan? Because GLP-1s can be a support, weight loss program support, but they're not the solution. The plan is creating like a discipline or strategy or a blueprint, whatever word that stands for you that works for your life. Does that make sense? And you can 100% reset your metabolism. We talked about it happens with nourishment and knowledge and giving your body what it actually needs. And working with somebody who has walked these miles personally and professionally and created plans for patients for years. It's not willpower, you guys, because that's going to leave you in a minute when your brain moves to another task. I should do this, that. Nope, I should go get this done now. If you don't have a plan in place. And forget this, like, I'm going to start tomorrow, or I'm just going to let the holidays take me away and then I'm going to start in January. We talked about that. Those people that start today are the most successful that put the plan in place. Again, if it's not on my calendar, it's not getting done. Guess what's on my calendar? Movement, prayer, meditation, time for my health, time with loved ones, wellness, right? It's on my calendar and I communicate it. Like all day yesterday, I chose to work because I wanted to get caught up. There's certain commitments that I had. Guess where my phone was? Not anywhere near me. I was listening to holiday, quietly, gentle music and completing tasks that I promised my team. For you, because I care about you. And having this ongoing guidance and accountability, that's the space where I walk people weekly through this, right? So, team, if you can, if you want to work with me more closely, drop the calendar link in the chat. Feel free to jump on my calendar. I don't have a ton of spaces between now and the end of the year because a lot of people start to panic right now. But type ready in the chat if you're done trying to figure this out alone. So before you log off, I want to speak to the people who felt a shift. Drop in the chat what was one thing that was very helpful for you today? What made you think, oh, this is why my body's doing what it's doing? And you had that aha moment. Because when you think about it and you write it down, that's clarity for you. Because clarity without support begins to fade, and that's why I'm here. So right now, many of you are standing in this very, very place. You finally are beginning to understand your metabolism. But I bet you're also thinking, how do I actually apply this? What do I eat this afternoon for lunch? Well, people put it in the chat. Protein is the first thing you want to think about. What do you eat tomorrow? How do I calm my cortisol? How do I sleep better? How do I not fall off track again? And this, my friends, is where many of you get stuck. You leave, and I've done this before many times on, webinars and classes. You leave inspired, and then your life happens, and you're like, what did she talk about? You know, what do I have to change right now? And that is exactly why I created Pocket Doc. It's not another program to do. It's not overwhelming. And it's really not informational overload. I make it simple. It's changing a little bit next year. But that's where you have me in your pocket so metabolism is supported in real life, right? You don't have to remember everything I teach because you got a portal in there of all the handouts that I use with my patients. You get weekly guidance from me, ongoing education, and breaking it down into simple pieces, tools that help you apply it to your body right now. And guess what? What I all need and we all need when we want to change something, getting in the room so you have the accountability, right? I believe it was Ashley that mentioned, like, I'm fearful, like the accountability to myself. Well, guess what? She's already jumped in. She's ready to go. And it's like having your doctor in your pocket, walking with you through your metabolism, through your hormones, through your energy in real life and showing up live and asking questions that you need answered. So everything we talked about today, cortisol, hunger, hormones, digestion, sleep, this is exactly the work that we go deeper in Pocket Doc. So this session was kind of like an overview. It was an awareness. Now you want to start to integrate it, you guys. I want to say something really gently but honestly. Trying to do this alone costs more than Pocket Doc ever will. It's going to cost you mental energy, emotional stress, trying to figure it out, this fear of gaining weight. I don't want you to be where you are right now in the next 3 months. I want you to move. Create the change that you want to see. Stop second guessing and saying, I don't know how to do it. Because I know support is not a weakness. I reach out when I need support. It's how healing actually happens. Pocket Doc is actually for the person who says, I am done with the extremes. I want long-term health and I want to feel safe in my body again. And I want to do it with somebody and be invited into a system that actually works. So it's for the people who are actually evaluating their health as an asset, not an afterthought. So I'm inviting you with so much love to commit to your health in 2025. This year's not over, you guys. But if something inside of you is saying, this is what I've been missing, I want you to listen to that. Listen to your intuition because that voice doesn't get louder. It gets quieter when you ignore it. That's why we started this session by dropping in, putting your hand on your heart, closing your eyes if you could, and really clicking in with, like, what is my energy? Right? Because we can ignore those voices. So if you are ready to stop trying to figure this out alone, Pocket Doc is open right now. You can join it right this moment and you can start receiving support immediately. And if you know you want deeper, more personalized support, my team has dropped the calendar link in the chat. So before we close, because I don't want price to feel confusing to you, Pocket Doc is intentionally super simple. It's either 97 a month, or if you want to go all in and get 2 months for free, it's $9.97 for the annual option. I give you 2 months for free if you go all in. Why? Because I love you and I know you're ready to go. It's not a discount, you guys. It's a commitment to healing. So if you sign up for the year, you've committed to yourself because I want you to really feel what that means. The value, the cost versus the price that we talked about. Pocket Doc is less than what many people spend on one appointment, one supplement, or even 1 month of guessing. And it's ongoing guidance and accountability and support. You're not paying for information. You are investing in consistency and clarity, nervous system safety, and a body that finally is ready to feel supported. It's not about the decision about money. It's about whether you want to try to figure this out alone and go at a slower space or whether you're ready to be carried through your healing. Does that make sense? Because healing happens in relationship. I can honestly relate to that. It happens with repetition. That's why I repeated several things over and over again. And it happens when you're not isolated. I believe isolation is the devil. So if you feel that pull, I'm welcoming you in. Welcome you into a space where you don't have to be perfect, where you can show up, you don't have to remember everything, you don't have to rush your body, but you get to heal with humans. So drop the link in the chat for Pocket Doc if you haven't already. Both of those are really good choices. And if you feel ready, drop yes in the chat so that we can acknowledge. You guys, this is not about doing more. It's about being supported while you heal with love and light and health. Remember, as I close, you get one body, one metabolism, and you deserve that support. So who's going to jump in with us with Pocket Doc? There's a couple of you that are already in it. I believe that I see on the call right now. A couple of you guys had to jump off and go to work. I appreciate you being here. Anybody have any questions that I can answer? I'm so excited for you, Ashley. Yeah, she's already jumped in. Great job. I am so proud of you and I can't wait to work with you. I believe we have a live tomorrow for those of you that are joining us. I'm pretty sure. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is our first live. Any questions coming up for those of you that are still on? And remember, if you want to drop the link to my calendar, if you want to talk about this or talk about if you want a closer connection with me, then we can, my spaces are filling up fast, but you can feel free to jump in there. All right, no questions. I guess I did my job. I spoke a lot. I am sending you guys so much love, blessings, and continue to enjoy this holiday season. You are so welcome. And, again, if you want to take a minute before we jump off, let me know what really stood out for you, so that I understand, like, what was like your biggest takeaway, your aha moment that stood out for you if you didn't answer yet? Because that I read all the chat after we get off. Hazel can attest, she sends it to me and I read through it, or sometimes I just go in on my own and read it. All right, guys, have a beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you again. And those of you that I'll see in Pocket Doc tomorrow at 1 p.m. And I hope you enjoy this wonderful day, and we'll talk to you guys all soon. Be well. Keep up the great work, guys.